My favorite part of my position is really dealing with these young innovators that are out there in 4-H and FFA, and I get to talk to them every single day. And I have an internship program at the department that I believe is the most competitive in the country. We had 112 applications for 12 positions this year.
Wow.
And that didn't start out whenever I got there. When I got there, we had 12 applications for 12 positions my first year. And through word of mouth and the experience that we give them, we don't make them secretaries. We don't make them push papers. We don't make them do grunt work. We give them actual meaningful work to do, because I want every employee that's there, whether they're the janitor or whether they're the deputy chief of staff or whatever they may be, to find meaning in what they're doing, because work is hard enough to be miserable while you're doing it.
That's my guest this week, Kentucky Commissioner of Agriculture, Jonathan Schell. I'm Todd Faulkner. Welcome to Leadership Magnified. Commissioner Schell is a fifth-generation farmer who owns and operates Schell Farms and Greenhouses in Garrard County. He was elected commissioner in November of 2023. He told me he's already planning to run for a second term next year. A rural kid, he grew up on a farm. We talk about his approach to leadership and how his grandfather played a major role in who he is today. Here's my conversation. Enjoy. Commissioner Jonathan Schell, thank you for being here on Leadership Magnified.
Absolutely appreciate it.
So before we kind of jump into your role as commissioner and leadership, stuff like that, for those watching on YouTube or listening, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, married, kids, et cetera, et cetera.
So I'm a fifth generation farmer in Garrard County, which is, close to 4 hours from here in Paducah. And grew up, just like most rural kids did. I grew up on a farm. We've got a beef cattle operation. When I was growing up, we raised about 250 acres of tobacco, and then we have a greenhouse operation that back then was for tobacco plants. It's now converted into a greenhouse operation for flowers, so we raise hanging baskets, bedding plants. Went through school, was an FFA, loved it. I think it's the best leadership organization that are building the next generation of kids and leaders in our country, and was state star in placement for that organization, my local vice president in that chapter, and went off to college and got a ag business degree at EKU, Eastern Kentucky University. Met my wife, and she's a nurse practitioner. We got married pretty young, probably about 21, 22 years old.
That is young.
And we were married for about a year, and both of us have a heart for vulnerable kids. I sit on the CASA board of Lexington. You all have got a great CASA in this area of the state as well, court-appointed special advocates. I tell people all the time that if there was a commissioner of adoption and foster care, that's what I would have ran for rather than a commissioner of agriculture. Vulnerable kids are my first love. Agriculture is my 1A. And so we got married, and about a year and a half in, I'm running for state representative in 2012. And we get a call after my primary in August, and they're like, hey, we've got this kid. He's 15 months old, needs a home. Can you all take him? We're on our way to do like this coal rally in Bell County where my mom's people are from. And we get this call, and we're like, what do you say? I mean, yes. So we're on our way down. We do this rally. We come back, pick up this 15-month-old kid, and go back home, find out my wife is 12 weeks pregnant like the next day. And so we get, this kid, a pregnancy, and then we ended up adopting him. He's my oldest son. He's 15 years old now, Jackson. And then we've got 3 other children. My oldest and youngest are adopted. And was state representative. For 6 years, was the first Republican majority leader in the state of Kentucky, led the effort to flip the House in the state back in 2016, and then lost election in 2018, sat out for a few years, farmed, and came back in 2023 and ran for ag commissioner, and now we're here.
And here we go, and life happens, and family happens, and okay, so what, for those who aren't familiar with ag commissioner, I mean, we know the term, or the title, I should say. What are your responsibilities in this elected position?
Yeah, so I mean, just as a broad strokes, I feel like this position over the years has kind of translated into being the voice for rural Kentucky and agriculture. And that's taken many different forms depending on the commissioner that was in office. What I try to do is to absolutely holistically promote rural Kentucky, but also to create these partnerships between urban and rural areas in the state. And even though Paducah is a city that's here, it's still a rural area that we live in. The only city in the state of Kentucky that's not classified as rural is Louisville. And it's our largest asset in Kentucky in agriculture, in my opinion. And I think the numbers back that up. And so what we have been trying to do in my office is not only to promote rural areas and the way of life that we have, and the partnerships and the businesses and the productivity that we do, but also connecting consumers in our urban areas with how farmers produce the products, and really to bridge those gaps between. But outside of being that voice and that advocate, we have real things that we have to do on a daily basis. So if you go to the gas station and you get your gas pump, we inspect every gas pump in the state of Kentucky to ensure that when you buy a gallon of gas, you're actually getting a gallon of gas. There's 46,000 pumps in the state of Kentucky that we inspect every year. We also do bounce houses and all the amusement rides in the state, roller coasters at Kentucky Kingdom, all those kind of things fall under our department. We have the state apiarist, which takes care of the bees in the state of Kentucky. We have the state vet's office, which helps with our animal health. We have a lot of grants and programming that we do to help new and beginning young farmers with our ag development. We have the marketing department, which hopefully all of your listeners and viewers know Kentucky Proud. We have about 88% name recognition in the state of Kentucky for that brand, and that means that you're getting a product that is locally grown from a farm family in the state, so we're really proud of that. And then we have other functions that we do around grain bins and inspections and all the things. So the Department of Agriculture touches every person that's listening to this and every person in the state of Kentucky on a daily basis.
You mentioned the Kentucky Proud. Immediately, everybody's going to know the
Yeah.
sticker that says Kentucky
That's
Proud.
right.
But to your point, yes, there's Paducah, the city, but when I talk to young reporters who are transplants coming here,
Yeah.
I tell them, look, you're going to be doing a lot of farming stories.
Yep.
You better learn the terminology because farmers are going to watch, and if you get the terminology wrong, you don't understand the process,
Yep.
you're going to offend them.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And I'll back you up on that by saying, we just left Wave Ag, which is the West Kentucky economy that the Ford County River region put together. Wave Ag is the ag emphasis on that, and they have their conference every year this time. And Tony Brannon, who's the executive director of that now, said that the first House district, which is a little sliver of Paducah and the four river counties that Stephen Rudy, the majority leader, represents, is the #1 ag district in the state of Kentucky at $600 million worth of value in that on cash receipts. And so this area of the state is king in ag.
Mm-hmm. What do you think people, generally speaking, people get wrong or have assumptions about agriculture today, whether that's crop farming or livestock production?
I think
or any
absolutely. I think one of the major things that we're seeing now, and I am a big believer in Maha and a big believer in traditional ag, and I think with our food is medicine program that we have here in the state of Kentucky and how we've dealt with this, I think you can be both. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that the general public has right now nationally around agriculture is that farmers are overusing pesticides and they're overusing these chemicals and all this stuff that's going on. And what I try to explain to them is those things cost so much money whenever you're buying them to put on crops, to be able to have these crop protection strategies to make plant health where it needs to be so that you can provide this world food for everyone. We don't live in a bubble, and so whenever you change one thing, it could absolutely cause people in the world to starve. And so we actually created no-till in the state of Kentucky. There's a monument marker down in Christian County where that was created, and that's what really came out of the Dust Bowl, where people were turning over the soil. It was eroding out. We had the Dust Bowl in America, and no-till came from that, and we're proud in the state of Kentucky to be able to do that, but you can't do it without products to be able to manage those weeds and do the things that you have to do. And so what I try to explain to people is because these things are so expensive, fertilizers, fungicides, pesticides, herbicides that we use, farmers try to limit that as much as possible. You don't want to spray any more than you absolutely have to. And so what I try to explain is that we just need time in ag to meet where the consumer is on the demand that they're having. And technologies are coming up very rapidly to be able to solve that without government regulations or without disruptions in the marketplace. Right now, there are innovations that are out there to where that you can get a sprayer that has sensors, technologies, AI, things that are involved in it to where that you can reduce the amount of application by 95% on water and chemical. Those are $1 million machines that are 6 foot wide. And we're talking about needing to replace sprayers that are 180 foot wide in fields to be able to do it. So we just have to have time to be able to get the technology to speed up to where that farmers can apply it in a meaningful way. But these are safe products that we have had approved by EPA, FDA for years and decades. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I think we see. Another one that I worry about a lot with animal activist organizations is around the abuse of animals. These are like family members in many cases. I mean, we love these animals. They take care of us. We have the best conservationist practices in the world. There's not a better conservationist in the entire world or someone who is green than an American farmer and Kentucky farmers. We try to protect the land as much as possible. We take care of our animals as best we can in the environment as well.
Okay, so let's dive into leadership. How would you describe your leadership style? And I was reading on the website you you practice the principles of food, faith, and family. So walk me through that.
For me, I think that my leadership style, the way that I try to present it, is leading by example. And as I was growing up, my biggest leadership idol was my grandfather. And the way that he did it was he wasn't going to ask anybody to do something he wasn't willing to do himself. And if he needed to muck a stall, he'd muck a stall, and he'd have you right there beside him. If it was taking out the trash, you'd take out the trash. If it was going to a meeting and chairing a board meeting, you'd be right there with him. I want people to have as much access as they possibly can to me and to the experiences that we can provide at the department, not only for our producers and partners, but also for employees. Whenever we came into the department, we tried to change the culture around our employees that were there of one to success, innovation, and gratitude. And what I mean by that is we want our people at the department to innovate beyond just where their position is statutorily required to go inspect a gas pump this way. We want them to innovate in their position so that they find meaning in what they're doing. And through that, we're going to find success. It's just through attrition. If we have employees that are happy and they're innovating in their positions, that we're going to be successful. And it's going to make me look better if they're happier and doing their jobs. And so with that, we also want to show the gratitude to them and to the partners that we have at the Department of Ag, whether it's in our commodity partners, our community partners, the producers that we represent, or the consumers that we sell to. And so that atmosphere that we try to create is one of innovation, success, and gratitude, specifically at the department. But my favorite part of my position is really dealing with these young innovators that are out there in 4-H and FFA. And I get to talk to them every single day. And I have an internship program at the department that I believe is the most competitive in the country. We had 112 applications for 12 positions this year. Wow. And that didn't start out whenever I got there. When I got there, we had 12 applications for 12 positions my first year. And through word of mouth and the experience that we give them, we don't make them secretaries. We don't make them push papers. We don't make them do grunt work. We give them actual meaningful work to do, because I want every employee that's there, whether they're the janitor or whether they're the deputy chief of staff or whatever they may be, to find meaning in what they're doing, because work is hard enough to be miserable while you're doing it.
That's good. I like that. Work's hard enough. What are some lessons in leadership, interacting with people as you do, that you've learned over time, whether that's General Assembly, as commissioner, in life in general? What are some lessons?
So I have, in our internship program, I'll just kind of introduce it this way. I do like a 7-week series with them during the summer, where every Monday we take an hour and I talk to them. And whenever I go around to FFA groups or school groups or young entrepreneurs, or we go to chambers or wherever it may be, depending on what they want me to talk about, sometimes it's on leadership. We'll talk about the 6 points of leadership that I have. And, the first one is discipline over motivation, that you're not always going to be motivated to do the things that you need to do, but you need to be disciplined in order to find the success in the stuff that you have going on. Another one's learning to love the work, that you're going to find success, you're going to find failure in everything that you do. You may be successful in the morning and failure at night, but learning to love the work that you're doing will keep you going and motivated in what you're doing. Another one is communication fixes nearly every problem. If we could just learn to communicate with people openly, honestly, and directly, it gets rid of nearly every problem that we face as we go through life and the things that we do. Another one is that there is no growth in comfort. If you are comfortable in your position and comfortable where you are not growing. And that is a fact with everything in life. A seed has to be broken before it can sprout. And so we go through these leadership points that I have learned the hard way. And all of these 7 series that we go through are really through the failures that I've experienced in life, and tried to collect these in my mind to really give them to these young people that are coming up, so that maybe they don't have to make these same failures, to have that same talk with somebody later on.
Yeah, there's some reporters, they'll make the wrong call or whatever, and they'll really get on themselves. And I look at them and I go, I've done that 100 times.
Yep.
It's okay.
Absolutely.
Just learn from it.
Yep.
Move on. Learn from it, move on. What are some red flags, mistakes you see younger leaders make?
Not listening to people who have come before them. That was one of the greatest assets that I had as I was growing up, is I was never told no to be in a room of importance. My granddad, he was on a lot of boards. He was never like, an important man. He was never like the CEO of something or something else. He was just a farmer, and that means a lot. But I never was told no that I couldn't be in a meeting or couldn't be in a conversation. And so I was able to learn from older people, people of experience, and people who had wisdom to be able to impart. And as I have got into leadership positions, I've tried to make sure that I never make the mistake of not listening to someone who has had that experience before. And a lot of times we get into our positions and we think we know it all. We think we've been there, we've done that, and we've done nothing. And I think that if as a leader, you can always understand that somebody has input, that you can find value in every person that you're interacting with, I think that you will find a lot more success. You'll have a lot more morale in your organization. But I think that is a big mistake that a lot of younger leaders make, is that they're so focused and driven on the ambition of success and doing it that they don't stop to talk to people who have been there before and made those failures themselves.
You know, you kind of touched on this. Next question: who's been an influence in your life?
Yeah.
Your grandfather. Who else do you think?
You know, I'd like to talk about my grandfather a little bit
Yeah.
more. So my grandfather, he was never a man of accolades. You know, it wasn't like he was given awards or anything, but my granddad just grinded his whole life and built the business that we have now, built the farming operation that we have now. And my granddad, the thing that I love the most about him, and the thing that I try to do myself, is you can be professional and have fun. You can have a personality and be smart. You can do the things, like there's a balance in life that you can gather and you can work with. And that was always something that I was so intrigued with my grandfather, was the respect that he had in the community because of the man that he was, but also the fun that he was able to have. He'd go to the gas station and, you know, he'd say silly things. Like, you know, he'd go up to a cash register and there'd be, you know, a female cash register or something up there, and they'd ask him for, you know, 575 GB, and he'd say, money, money, money's all you pretty women want, you know. Or he'd be driving down the road and he'd see somebody walking on the sidewalk that he knew, and this is probably illegal, so nobody say anything, but he would kind of get up on the sidewalk in our local hometown, and he'd get right behind them and he'd beep the horn real big, you know, and scare them. Just stuff like that he would do. And I just always remember with him that I saw someone who was at the top of their field in agriculture, that was respected, but also understood how to have that interaction, that human experience with people, that he didn't let success or ambition or drive get in the way of the relationship that he had.
I like that. That's good. You gonna run for ag commissioner again?
Absolutely. I love this job. It's the best job in the world. There's hands down not another position, I don't think, in the country that gives me the ability and access to make a difference the way that I have. We're trying our best to become national models for other states in which we have run our department, and to gain that national recognition for our farmers and producers and the initiatives that we've put together. And I definitely need another 4 years to be able to make that happen.
And I know I'm asking you to look in a crystal ball, but I mean, are there any other positions? Look at Congressman Comer. You know, he was ag commissioner, now he's Congress. Are there any statewide other positions right now, or no?
You know, the way that I try to operate in politics is I want to do the best job possible at the moment. And these kids that I have interning with me, they're always like, well, how do you put your goals together? You know, what are your goals? And I tell them, I've never had goals. And I know that's going to sound weird, but my goal has always been to be a difference maker in what I'm doing. And I feel like that through that, opportunities come available, and you just have to know when those opportunities are there to be able to grab them. And so I'm never looking for the next thing. I actually hate when politicians are so ambitious that they're always trying to look for that next thing. And they're like, well, what, you know, they ask the questions they want the answers to, kind of thing. And it just always aggravates me. But as far as like another position, it's not nothing that I'm ever focused on. But I'll tell you what I am focused on for next year, besides my reelection, will be Jamie Comer for governor, and I can't wait for that.
It's on the horizon. Okay, we're going to end like we end every podcast, 3 questions. You can answer with 1 word or more if you like.
Yeah.
Kind of pulls back the curtain on your personality. What brings you joy?
I just think people do. I mean, I love being around the energy that people feed to me. I just, people.
What brings a tear to your eye?
You know, it's a little bit of a loaded question right now for this year for me. You know, my dad died January the 3rd.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And so I've been taking over the operation fully since then, and working, trying to do our farming operation and being ag commissioner. And then this week, a notable legend in the ag department and the ag community passed away, Dell Dobson, who was over top of our farm safety and our Raising Hope program. And I think that for me, what brings a tear to my eye in a serious way is not honoring people that need to be honored while they're here, so that they can experience and feel the love that they really deserve for the work that they've done. And we do it afterwards. Afterwards, I made this little program for my dad in our local community for FFA kids to be able to have a cow, some things like that, just trying to help and, trying to honor my dad in different ways, because the man that he was did the same thing with my granddad. And with Dale, we're probably going to find a way to name the program after him, and scholarships for grain bin safety and other stuff. And we're going to honor him the way that he needs to. But, a man like Dale, I don't think he had a college degree. I mean, I don't know. He used to make the joke that he was in speech classes his whole life, couldn't talk right, but he spoke for a living now. He's just a big jokester. And the impact of lives that he touched and saved. I mean, we directly know that he saved at least 15 people from suicide in direct conversations that he had with them, that he talked them off the edge. And we know that over the 30-year period in which he started the program, Raising Hope and the farm safety, that Kentucky went from 50 farm deaths a year through accidents to less than 12.
Wow. And
so we know he made an impact, and we know he knew he was loved here, and he had people that loved him. But as far as honoring the people who are need honoring before they pass away and they die, it's not enough to name a road after somebody and other stuff. I mean, that means something afterwards. It means something for the family. But here more and more lately, I think that we need to honor people that have made an impact while they can still experience that.
I like that. Okay, last question. What gives you hope?
I think it's next generation. I used to be somebody who was always like, this next generation is no count. They're living in their mom's basement, playing too many video games, they're eating Tide Pods, that kind of thing. But I think that, and saying this to a media personality and a broadcaster and journalist is probably not the best thing, but I think sometimes we just need to shut this stuff off. Social media, the news, those things, because we consume so much of it. And I encourage people, go to your local FFA, go to your local 4-H. Maybe you don't have to shut it all off, but take time to go and experience what they're doing. FBLA, HOSA, these different youth programs that are out there, get involved in them. And if you're worried about that next generation, you won't be after you leave there. I mean, there are some really impressive kids in this state that are doing some really impressive things. And I get to see it every day. It's one of my favorite things, is interacting with these kids and really trying to pour into them. What I try to do is make sure that they feel like they've taken something from me, like there's a piece of me that they have gotten that day. And I try to give them everything that I've got.
Commissioner Jonathan Schell, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's good.
I really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
That's this week's show. If you like what you heard, post a link to the podcast on your social media pages. Video and sound by Mason Watkins. Editing by Brian Clapp. Until next week, stay safe, friends.